classmates. Hello, Miss Patterson. Good evening. Here I am, Maria Jones, once again, and I want to take a few minutes of your time and ask you, or perhaps invite you, to go with me on an excursion to Little Africa, a Caribbean island tucked away between the Great Antilles, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the island of Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a tropical island that when we think of it, we think of tropical breezes, palm trees, blue skies, ocean breezes, sunny skies, truly a tropical paradise. However, Puerto Rico is all of that and much more. Puerto Rico is a mixture of culture, race, and heritage, from the European Spaniards to the Taínos, Arawak Indians, to our African slaves from West Africa, Nigeria. When we talk about Puerto Rico, we don't think about nor discuss enough about our African heritage. And that's what we want to talk about tonight. I want to share with you factual documentation of our African heritage in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, as everyone knows, was discovered by Christopher Columbus. Historians say discovered. The reality of it is that the island was already inhabited by the native Indians, Taínos or Arawak Indians from South America. When Christopher Columbus arrived in the island with his crew, he had African slaves. Everyone knows about La Pinta, La Niña, and La Santa Maria ships that Christopher Columbus had or received from Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand of Spain. And in his ships, he had Moors and African slaves. Once he arrived in the islands, the inhabitant Taino Indians received the colonizing people with warm, open arms, and there began the mixture of Taino race with the Spanish race and the African race. There it's the mixture of colors and heritage that makes today Puerto Rican people. Now, the Indians were terribly exploited by the colonizing people, and they used the Taino Indians as slave hand to cultivate the fields, major agricultural fields of sugarcane and coffee. Disease, intermarriage, and all of those things that created the Indian race to be completely exterminated in the island of Puerto Rico forced the Spaniards to continue to bring more slaves into the island to, I guess, prosper the cultivation and the farming of the island, because that was the main trade. More African slaves were into the island from West Africa, specifically Nigeria, and they settled in the town of Loíza. Loíza was the town that today still you will see our tradition of African culture very much alive, even in the 21st century. Puerto Rico is filled with the strength and the power and the perseverance of our African heritage and our African culture. We have inherited the rhythms of the drums, the percussion, the music, the festive nature of our people is very much of our African ancestors. We don't talk about that as much as we should, because so many different influences have pretty much overpowered our African heritage. But even today, when you visit the island of Puerto Rico, you can't help but notice the tremendous amount of color and strength and variety that exists within the Puerto Rican people. One very important thing to note is that our African heritage has allowed the island, or the Puerto Rican people, if you will, to benefit from Different sports such as baseball and boxing. These are things that our African slaves brought into the island as a form of entertaining themselves between cultivation and working the farmland. In addition to that, our tradition, Yoruba religion or Santeria religion, that's very much inherited from the Yoruba tribes from West Africa. Uh, Puerto Rico's music goes far beyond salsa. Salsa was just born in New York City in the 20th century. But when you really dig into the culture of our music and you hear the drums and the percussions, that is Africa. You hear Africa. So there you have it. Africa in the tiny Caribbean island of Puerto Rico is part of the Puerto Rican heritage.